At a high school party, I was drunk and ended up having a one-night stand with the best guy in our class. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. To my surprise, he proposed to me, but not long after we got married, I lost the baby. Well, our marriage still continued, but he was not warm and fuzzy to me, until 2 years later that I learned he hadn't married me because he loved me. He did it to fulfill his grandfather's dying wish, and, to make matters worse, he was still in love with another woman, so I decided to get a divorce, and at night at the end of making love to him I opened my mouth and said, "Matthew, we should get a divorce." My voice was soft, but I could feel his body tighten in my arms. Matthew looked down at me. Why? His voice was calm. As always, we got married because of the baby, but unfortunately, we're going to lose it. I met his gaze. I've gotten used to being single, honestly. Whether you're here or not, it feels the same to me, but without you, I won't have as many expectations or frustrations. I think you probably feel the same way. After the divorce, I wouldn't have to deal with his disdain for my mother and relatives. Likewise, he wouldn't have to face my greedy family. Matthew didn't say anything, just stared at me silently. His brown eyes grew darker. Just when I thought he wouldn't speak, he nodded quietly. All right, no further questions, no more explanations. It was just like when I agreed to marry him, a simple all right. That was the Matthew I knew. I smiled at him, forcing back tears, and gently buried my head in his chest, hugging him tightly one last time. Matthew didn't respond. He just let me hold him in silence. Then, I pulled away gently. I'm going to take a shower. As I was about to get out of bed, someone grabbed my arm, pulling me back onto the soft bed. Matthew kissed me fiercely, but when he saw the panic in my eyes, he stopped. His eyes were filled with anger, but he slowly calmed down. He turned over and lay down beside me. Go to sleep, he said, closing his eyes. The next morning, when I woke up, Matthew was already gone. I started packing up my things. Before I left, I took one last look at the house I had lived in for 2 years. I put the keys and the divorce papers on the table, then texted Matthew. I've signed the divorce papers on the table. I've entrusted Mr. Sutton to handle everything. When are you free to finalize things? I'm leaving. Take care. Matthew was in a meeting when he received the message. When he saw it, he was stunned. No one in the room had ever seen him so disoriented, especially his secretary, Lucille. She'd known Matthew for years and had never seen him like this. Mr. Brock, Lucille whispered, trying to get his attention. Matthew glanced at her, calmly set down his phone, and continued speaking. Just when everyone thought he was fine, he suddenly said, "Meeting's over." He grabbed his phone from the table and rushed out of the room. The others exchanged confused looks. What's going on with Mr. Brock? Matthew went straight home. It was the first time he'd gone home during work hours. The house was clean, but there was no trace of me. Only the divorce papers on the table, blown slightly out of place by the wind. Matthew walked over and picked them up. The agreement was simple. I didn't want anything from him. I had already signed it. Matthew stared at the divorce papers, lost in thought. After a while, there was a soft sound of a door opening. Matthew suddenly turned to look at the door. His mother, Selena, had just pushed it open and was startled by his sudden movement. "What's going on?" she asked, confused. "Nothing."